I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OGN. Welcome, Augies Worldwide, to this edition of Ask Dave, where we take a look at questions sent in by readers and see if we can provide some answers or at least a few hints to help people along the way. What do we have today, Trevor?
All right, today Scott asks about his power supply for a mobile unit.
Okay, he has a mobile unit connected to a 30 amp power supply, and he is connecting color to color, red to red, black to black. When you're dealing with 12 volt power, black is the negative or common. Okay, I know that's different from AC household wiring where black is the hot, but in this case black is the common or negative, and the red one is the plus side. I would suggest that you not just simply connect it straight to a radio. Make sure there's a fuse in there somewhere that's rated for the particular radio. But otherwise you should be okay. By the way, you can connect multiple radios to that supply, that 30 amp supply. For example, you could have 20 amps for a HF 100 watt radio and still have room left over to add a 2 meter mobile rig to that mix. So you've got good things there, and you'll find out very quickly if the power supply creates hash or something like that creates problems on RF. But good luck.
Jason, call sign KG7SOU, wants to know if he can use one power supply for 2 radios and how to connect 2 antennas to an antenna tuner.
Okay, yes, you can use one power supply for multiple radios, as I pointed out before. Make sure that you don't exceed the current demand in the radio. Note that things like single sideband equipment will take a little power here and there and lots of power on voice peaks, whereas an FM radio, like for 2 meters, has a constant power requirement while transmitting. It doesn't vary because they're varying the frequency and not the power in the output wave. You've got multiple antennas to be fed with one connector. You need an antenna switch. This photograph shows one that I'm using here in my shack, where I bring in multiple HF antennas and it goes down to the radio. You could get something like this. The one I have is a fairly expensive one. You can get them less expensively, but look, for example, like on dxengineering.com's website and see what they have there.
All right. Mark, call sign KE8HAA, has a question about his power supply for an X5 105 10 watt QRP portable radio.
Okay, that's the new Zygu, or Zigu. I call it Zygu, that MFJ is importing from China and selling. It is true, in fact, that you don't have, the power supply does not come with it. You need an external power supply. MFJ makes a number of wall warts that would work just fine for charging this particular radio, or you could connect it to your station power supply. It wants somewhere between 13.5 and 14 volts to be charged, and most ham radio station power supplies put out 13.8, so that fits right in there and would be the perfect thing to do it. So you could go either with the wall wart or connect it to your power supply. There is a plug required, a standard little power supply thing that will be on the MFJ power cube, but you'll have to add yourself if you're creating your own connection for it. You would think they would include something like that, but they don't.
All right. Phil asks about RF power and SWR meter.
Okay. His question has to do with why can't you use an HF power meter for VHF? And the answer is that the reactances in the components in the meter start to change as you get up into the VHF and UHF range. You start getting all sorts of stray capacitance and inductance, and it changes the response of the meter. Yes, the meter needle moves, but it's not accurate. However, it's not accurate linearly, so you can still use the ratio between forward and reflected power to determine the SWR. In other words, an HF power/SWR meter will give you a fairly accurate reading of SWR on VHF and UHF. The real popular MFJ 259C will work on HF and VHF. You have to get the 269C to get the UHF also, but they can measure the SWR in those ranges. So if one is designated for HF plus VHF plus UHF, that means its power readings are accurate even into those much higher frequencies. You figure HF goes from about 1.8 megahertz in the 160 band, and then you go up to 440 and you're at 440 megahertz. So from 1.8 to 440 is a huge range, and the meters have to be designed accordingly to do that. Well, that's it for this session of Ask Dave. Hope this finds you all in fair fettle and ready to put in more questions. So until we next meet, 73.